Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today, we got a treat for you. I got 6-0 top flyweight prospect. He is Mr. Christian Natvidad, making his return to LFA, taking on Mr. Jose Sandoval, June 13th, big co-main event contest for LFA 210. Christian, what's going on, my friend? How are you doing?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. You're such a fun and exciting prospect. I love watching your fights because I know when you're fighting, there's no going backwards. You come forward. I don't think you know how to go backwards, and then you always put on a show, man. I mean, the striking is so crisp. You can throw those knees, those kicks in there. Your problem on the ground if you have to go there. For you, how much pride do you take in your fighting style?
Lots of pride. Back in Hawaii, it's always been, stand and bang. Back when I was younger, we always had my neighbors, bring these random kids over to our house, and they have me like throw on these karate gloves, and they just have me throw down with these guys, and it never did ever go to the ground. Anytime it did go to the ground, they would always stand it up. It was always, that's just how it is in Hawaii, stand and bang.
Absolutely. You've been doing this for quite a long time. And I think it's really cool that you have a brother who also does this, who's made it to the UFC and some big promotions. For you, how cool is it to be able to have someone who's a family member, someone you're close with that's on this journey with you?
It's a huge blessing, and to be honest, without my brother, I probably wouldn't even have been doing this. He brought me into a jiu-jitsu gym back when I was in 10th grade, and it's the reason why I started wrestling back in high school and ended up going to college. And that's when, after college, is when I made my MMA debut. And from there, the rest is history.
Having that wrestling background, really makes you a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. For you, having that base, was it a lot easier with, being wrestling, competing, and being used to competition? Was it easier to make that transition to MMA?
Oh, 100%. It's the biggest base I feel like for MMA. Just starting off with the weight cuts, weight cuts for a lot of these fighters, especially these big weight cuts. A lot of people aren't used to it, even though it's always going to suck anytime you cut weight. I've been doing it for a while just because of wrestling. And then I always have that wrestling in my back pocket. So whenever I need to, pull that card out, I've always got it.
What was the MMA scene like, growing up in the Hawaii area? Obviously, you had some great fighters from Hawaii, you had BJ Penn, you had Max Holloway, obviously. What was that scene like growing up on the regional scene, amateur scene?
So I never actually fought in Hawaii. It was always my brother, and my brother fought all these top prospects, as an amateur. He had a 13-1 amateur career, and all the people that he fought, I'm pretty sure he was fighting them as an underdog. He was fighting them as a guy to lose. And my brother always came out on top. And, it's just cool seeing like a lot of these local MMA fighters that I've seen back when I was younger, and now, they're on the bigger stage and making a name of themselves.
Do you feel that fighting is more mental than is physical?
It's both. Everyone has their own battles, and for me, like, I feel like I've, especially as of lately, it's been a physical battle for me, and that's the reason why, um over the past however many years, 3 4 years, I've only had two MMA fights, and it's because of injuries, and it's all physical battles. But for I know a lot of people, they're talented in the gym, but under the lights they're not able to perform, and for them it's a mental battle.
Yeah, absolutely. For you, what's the ultimate goal in this? What do you want to achieve?
I want to be the first ever UFC flyweight champion that's Filipino. I feel like I don't think we've ever had a Filipino UFC champion. I know we've had Brandon Vera, but he was the champion for one championship. UFC Filipino champion. I feel like that sounds has a nice ring to it.
You're right. There's haven't been too many Filipinos do well in combat sports or even participate in general. Obviously, Manny Pacquiao in the world of professional boxing obviously did big things. You have Denise Zambanga, current champion over at One FC. For you, how much pride do you take in being able to represent the Philippines when you go out there?
A lot of pride, and I typically I always represent Hawaii because that's where I'm from. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. A lot of my family, friends are over there. I always got Hawaii behind me. I keep them close to my heart, but I just wanted to dig into my inner roots a little bit more and dig into the Filipino side and, have that whole country behind me, to take them on this ride with me. I remember back when I was younger, every time Manny Pacquiao fought, it was pretty much a holiday. We all skip school and we watch Manny Pacquiao fight. It's like we celebrate, and after every time Manny Pacquiao won, you just hear fireworks going over off all over the place. And I would like to bring the same kind of energy, but for UFC fights, and with me in the ring instead.
Absolutely. So you're taking on Jose Sandoval coming up, LFA 210. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
Tough, very tough guy. He's tough on the feet and he's savvy on the ground. He doesn't like to back down, and to be honest, I don't like to back down too. So we'll see. It's gonna be a clash.
As soon as this thing got announced, I got super excited. When you watch both of you guys fight, there's no boring fights. Both of you, I don't think, know how to go backwards. You only know how to go forward. Coming into it mentally, is a dog fight something that you're considering here?
All the time. That's what the fans like to watch. That's the reason why people tune in when I fight. It's because even though my past few fights have went to decision, it's always a firefight, and I think that's what get people excited. And that's the reason why the sport's growing, because they like to see people just swinging and banging.
It's kind of crazy. Some guys, they feel that dog fights, firefights make them really stressed. They don't like to engage in that. Other guys love it. For you, in that type of environment, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel at ease doing that?
Oh, 100%. That's what I did when I was growing up, but before I even learned how to even throw a punch, it was always just in the pocket and throwing. Like you said, not knowing how to go backwards. It's pretty much how I grew up. We just meet in the middle and we throw down. You seen Max Holloway and his whole point down stuff. It's the real thing.
In this day and age, one thing I'm really learning, as a fan, as a journalist, is there's a business side to mixed martial arts, obviously, in general in life. But now it really seems like social media plays a big role. You have to be appealing to the fans. The fans they're going to almost have to want to buy tickets to watch you fight. With you having this style, do you think that really appeals yourself to the casual fans?
Oh, 100%. When people see videos of me on the internet and they just see something wild, of course they're going to click that link, and want to tune in. And then when they hear that I'm going to fight again, they're going to tune in. 100%. No doubt
So
about it.
you train over in Arizona. You train at Fight Ready, one of the best gyms in the world. Some great guys out there. Obviously, Henry Cejudo. You have Coach Eric. How did you make your way to Fight Ready?
It's crazy because back in 2020, I just needed a little bit more partners. And me and my brother, we were actually planning on moving to Vegas to train at Extreme. And before I made that jump, I was planning on buying a house. I already talked to my job at the time about moving to and switching to different offices. Before we made that jump, I reached out to one of my friends that was training at Fight Ready. It's 10, 15 minutes down the road, and he told me the schedule. I showed up, and after the first day, we signed up. It was pretty much easy as that.
What's it like being with a bunch of high level guys, a bunch of guys in the UFC? Obviously, they're going to push you to do the training. They're going to push you to get better at your skills. But what's it like to also pick their brains, see, how they act, how they conduct themselves for the business side of things through interviews and just, the outside stuff that comes with being an MMA fighter?
It's inspiring. Obviously I want to be at the stage and level that they're on, and there's just knowledge everywhere. Like you mentioned, there's knowledge on the feet, there's knowledge on the ground, and there's knowledge in the business aspect of it. And I try to take everything with a bit of grain of salt and try to make it my own.
Right now you're a 6-0 fighter with the win here. Obviously, you'll be 7-0. There's a show that's going to start here in a couple of months on Tuesday nights. You might be familiar with it. It's called the Dana White Contender Series. In a perfect world, is that maybe what comes next after this?
That's 100% what comes after this. There's no way they're gonna say no to me having a contenders fight, especially that the way that I fight. I'm pretty sure they're gonna be calling me and getting me booked with a contenders fight.
So the week after you fight, there's another really big flyweight fight in the US, in the LFA rather. It's Fumi Nakuda, it's Cody Davis, two of the top flyweight prospects in the sport. Not thinking too far ahead of ourselves. I'm no matchmaker, but maybe it makes sense. Those two guys are close to the contender series. You're close to the contender series. You see maybe in a perfect world where if you get a dub, one of them gets a dub, Maybe you guys meet in the contender?
It's a big possibility. To be honest, the only reason why I know that fight is coming up is because one of my boys is going to be possibly fighting on that card, and one of my teammates, Gigi, she's on that card too. And I just wanted to take a peek, see who else is fighting on the card, and I saw every time there's a flyweight fight lined up, always sparks my interest. Take a look at it, see who's fighting. Um, I know Cody Davis a little bit just because he's been fighting in the LFA for a while. The other guy, I don't. To be honest, I don't really know who he is, but I mean, if he wins, we'll look into it. We'll see what happens.
For you, what would it mean to find that next level and be in the UFC?
It's gonna mean a lot, and it's not gonna mean a lot because it's always been my dream. Back when I was younger, I've never even thought I'd be a fighter. I never thought it would ever happen. I always tell people that I've always dreamt of myself being a professional skateboarder because that's what I wanted to do when I was younger. But being able to fight at a higher division, being able to fight at the highest level in mixed martial arts, it would mean a lot just because I'm fighting the best people, who participate in that sport. And what better is there to being able to knock out some of the best guys in the world?
Absolutely. A lot of people watch the sport, and I think for the most part, the casual fans understand what's going on in the sense you guys train, you try to go into fights, try to make the UFC, you try to win belts, try to move up the ranks, make more money, yada, yada, yada. But they don't see the fight that happens outside the cage. It's the fight to do this, to live out a life where you don't need to wake up at 9 o'clock or clock in at 9 o'clock in the morning, clock out at 5 p.m. It's living a life on your own terms, not having society dictate what you can and can't do, securing financial freedom, being able to build up a platform and share your message, with the whole world. For you, is this another reason why you do this?
Oh, 100%. The more money I make, the more I could eat. I love to eat, so, bring in those paychecks.
What does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
It means a lot. It's just because it's mixed martial arts. Obviously it's an art in its own, and it's the most purest art. It's the original sport back in the gladiator days. The original sport is fighting, and being able to take that into modern society, I feel like it's beautiful. And especially with the level that it's at now, it's always evolving. It's MMA is just going to be continue to be a growing and beautiful sport in my opinion.
You're at a time now, you're picking up a lot of steam. A lot of people are regarding you as a top prospect. You're on LFA, one of the biggest regional shows. What's it like to have fighters reach out to you, younger fighters, kids reach out to you on Instagram and tell you, hey, ask you for advice, be like, hey, I look up to you. I want to try to get there. You push me. What's it like to get that feedback?
It means a lot. And the reason why is because where they're at right now, I was in their shoes and I've always wondered, you know, if I could get advice from some of the best fighters back in the day, like what would I ask them? And these fighters are asking me. And blessing that they have currently is, the use of social media. Just because it's so easy to stay in contact with or get in contact with people these days. Back when I was younger, there's no way I was able to reach, people like Jose Aldo or um, BJ Penn. Well, BJ Penn was in Hawaii, and my coach back in Hawaii, he was partners with BJ, but BJ was doing his own thing, So it was hard to get in contact with these guys. And for the people these days, the younger generation, it's as easy as typing something on your phone and sending send, and seeing if the guy responds. And a lot of times, these guys do respond.
Obviously the journey of being a fighter is like no other. And, one thing that I love about it, you acquire so many values, life lessons, morals from being a mixed martial artist. Some people have told me that mixed martial arts saved their lives, provide them structure, provide them guidance, provide them a future, a pathway. For you, what have you learned about yourself and life in general through martial arts?
That you could do anything. Just because mixed martial arts, it like you mentioned before, it's definitely a mental battle and a physical battle. But when it comes to the mental battle, once you overcome the weight cuts, the hard training, having to sacrifice this and that, you come to realize that you're able to do anything. Any task that comes at hand, as long as you get your mind right, you could do it.
Absolutely. All right, Christian. Last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome on June 13th when you make your return to LFA against Jose Sandoval?
I try to knock this guy out. I know I'm coming off a few decision wins, but always trying to look for that knockout. So I'm hopefully I knock his ass out.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Christian, man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Glad we're able to do this, and I I can't wait to watch you fight, man. It's going to be awesome.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. That's it for us tonight. I'm Carl Peruzza. He is Mr. Christian Natvidad. Watch him June 13th, taking on Jose Sandoval. Take it easy, fight fans.